Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the Star City Games Players Championship, brought to you by Ultimate Guard and Carnox Chairs. I'm Nick Miller alongside our Season 2 Invitational Champion, Chris Barone. How you doing?
Great, yeah, I'm excited.
You got here playing the minimal events, but you crushed them.
Yep.
One of the highest win percentages in the event.
Yep.
You got there playing Mono Black Aggro and Pioneer, so we're going to talk to you in Standard about one of the few decks in that format that are actually beating down, doing something you're very familiar with.
Yep.
Tell us about how you landed on Golgari Adventures.
So I knew right away I wanted to play a creature deck. I wanted to play something that's somewhat intuitive. So I shied away from the Fires decks initially, and then I was testing with the Flash decks a little bit, but then some hands kind of seemed like they just weren't doing anything. Like my opponent would stick a threat or play an uncommonable creature, and I just was stuck with a hand that was trying to play catch up, and I couldn't really do it efficiently. So then last week was a Mythic Championship, and I saw the Golgari Adventure deck with Rotting Regisaur, and I tried that out, and it seemed to be working out. So I just kind of had to decide on that one.
Right. It seems right up your speed because the deck you played at the Invitational was a beatdown deck, but it had a lot of these extra layers, these little things going on in the deck.
Yep.
This deck, we'll get to the first slide and show you, you're this beatdown deck, but you're also disguised as this Adventures deck. So you have the Edgewall Innkeeper.
Yep.
Then the slew of adventure creatures here. Take us through the first ones here. We've got Foulmire Knight and Lovestruck Beast.
So Edgewall Innkeeper is one of the engines in the deck, and it's one of the main reasons to play the deck. You just get it on board early under counter magic. If your opponent's late on removal, you can get it down early. And it just turns all these guys into cantrips. I mean, it's tough for your opponent to keep up with you if every turn you're drawing an extra card than them. So that's the main draw to the deck. Foulmire Knight's just a concession to playing more adventure creatures, obviously, but it's also good because you can play it as a creature to get under counter spells. And even though it's not a lot of pressure, it's better than no pressure against the Flash decks.
Right. That's one thing we saw at the Mythic Championship was the key to beating this Flash deck was one drops and getting things under their counter spells. Innkeeper, there's no better card to get under their counter magic than that card.
Yep. And same with Lovestruck Beast. The first half of it is to get pressure on the board early, and then obviously 3 mana 5/5s. That's a pretty good stats for a 3 mana creature.
Right. You got a lot of power in this deck. We'll take the next slide here. We've got your utility adventure creatures here. You're mainly your only removal spell outside of Vivian here, Murder Strider, just your catch-all to everything.
Yeah, I mean, you're the beatdown deck, so what you really need to do is worry about some speed bumps in the way, and Murder Strider really handles that well. And it's a good card to go into the late game with if you want to play a more grindy matchup. Order of Midnight, same deal. It's more of a attrition card. The first half draws you a card basically, but it's a great card to play on too after the Edgewall Innkeeper for applying pressure, and it nets you a card if you have the Innkeeper in play. Paradise Druid, it's once again, all these cards are great to get under. The 1 and 2 drops are great to get under the Flash decks, but Paradise Druid also ramps into some powerful 4 drops in the deck, so it's important there. And there's also not really too many other great 2 drops to play in that slot. So.
Yeah, Paradise Druid, you're just going to see this card across almost every deck in the Standard format at this tournament. You're going to get used to seeing this card. We'll move on here. Now we're going to have our heavy hitters.
Oh, yeah.
Questing Beast, Rotting Regisaur. A lot of power, not a lot of mana.
Yeah. Oh, these are all the fun cards. This is the reason why I play the deck too. I mean, it's just a great time. You play Questing Beast and they have a cat out or a Planeswalker. It just feels great. You're playing this mythic rare from the new set, and it just seems like it's doing what it was designed to do, and it's crushing the opponent.
A lot of text on that card. Rotting Regisaur. This was the other kind of the hallmark from the Chris Kavartek deck at the Mythic Championship. You get this under counter magic sometimes, and then the game's almost over.
Yeah. Well, also shout out to Chris Kavartek for the list. Thank you. But yeah, Rotting Regisaur, I mean, not many cards in the format kill it. There's Deafening Clarion. I don't know if we'll see a lot of Fires decks this weekend, but the Dragonfire card out of the blue-red Flash decks, nothing really kills it. And so, I mean, a good way to stop it is maybe putting up a card like a cat or something, chump blocking it and just letting the drawback of this card, hinder my game plan. But that's where we get into the Vivian in the deck to give these cards trample, which if they have trample, they're much more effective.
Right, that's almost the hidden mode on Vivian. You read all these abilities and they're all so good.
Yep.
Then you forget about the fact that you're putting counters on something and there's trample. So all of a sudden, 9 power trample damage There's not a lot that can soak that up.
Actually, I think that's the reason you play Vivien is for the trample. It's to get over, the cat decks. And even with Quest and Beast, Death Touch and Trample, Foulmire Knight, Death Touch and Trample. Death Touch works well with the -3, but you mainly have Vivien for the trample damage. And additionally, against decks that play sweeper effects, when I was testing, I noticed that you can just play a card like a Rotting Regisaur or even one of your 2-drops, play Vivien, start putting counters on them. And, I mean, they have to get rid of that threat. That's what is it going to be? A 9/8? They have to waste a Wrath of God on that or a time warp, whatever.
Time wipe.
Yeah, time wipe. Yeah.
So it turns every threat into a must kill.
Yeah, exactly. So it's also planeswalkers are obviously good against sweeper effects. So it also has that added benefit.
Right, and on the next slide here, we have the other card that kind of punishes the decks that are trying to grind you out. The Great Hinge.
Yeah, almost forgot about this one. Yeah.
This one just does everything for you, it seems like.
Oh, this card's great, especially with the Rotting Regisaur, because you can play it for 2 mana, and then you can get hands where this is in play, you have no creatures in your hand, and then you end the turn with, 5 creatures in play, like more cards in your hand. It turns all your guys into cantrips. So between this and the Edgewell Innkeeper, those are like the 2 main engines that keep, the gears turning in this deck.
All right, we'll take a look at the mana here because you are notably trying to cast triple green and double black in this deck.
Yep.
You've got your dual lands here between Overgrown Tomb and Temple of Malady, but Fable Passage here, sort of a dual land, but does put you in some tough spots occasionally. How do you feel mulliganing and looking at opening hands with this deck with the mana base?
Actually, so I don't mind having a tap land in this. I consider this a tap land on a turn 1 or 2 because it has it has a 12 1-drops, right, between the Heart's Desire and the 2 other 1-drops. And so you can play, a guy on 1 and then play a tapped land and also play another guy on 2. So having, the 6 land that comes into play tap some of the time, that's fine. That's fine for the mana base. So this deck can totally afford playing the Fable Passage. Sure. Yeah.
Take us into the sideboard here. What did you expect coming into this event? How did you shape the meta in your head to determine what you were going to do in the sideboard?
Yeah, so the decks in my head were some variants of Flash, the food decks, and the Fires decks, right? Those are the ones that were at least in my head, right? The most prevalent ones. And so looking first at Casualty of Wars, I think I don't think I'd bring this in against the Fire decks necessarily because you're more just like beating down and killing them with like Regisaur or your Vivien with other creatures. This is more for like the food decks, and because I feel like those games get longer because they're more removal spells that can actually deal with your creatures, and they have the cats to like slow your game plan down, and so you'll get to 6 mana and you'll be able to kill some of their engine cards. Duress, time has proven Duress it's one of the best sideboard cards in Magic. So
it's always going to be there if you're a black deck.
Yeah, and so that's great against the Flash decks or Fires decks or any type of variants on those.
Epic Downfall here, pretty good against the Cavaliers.
I actually have Epic Downfall in there against cards like Mayhem Devil or even the Mirror Match, but basically it's a catch-all for any type of creature. I don't think I'm worried about the Cavaliers out of the Fires decks necessarily. I'm trying to go under them, and if their big play is playing a Cavalier on 5. I think my creatures are honestly bigger than the Cavaliers, or hopefully I'll have the Murderous Rider in hand at that point. I may consider it, but it's mainly in there for other creature decks.
Sure. Rest of the cards here, we got Thrashing Bronodon, Shifting Ceratops, and Noxious Grasp. In a format dominated by green, it's not a surprise to see Noxious Grasp here. Yeah. But what about these other 2 creatures?
So Shifting Ceratops is for the Flash decks. I want to be able to make them leave their mana open, which they do every turn anyway, and then play a Shifting Ceratops and make them basically waste that turn. I mean, obviously that's why people play this card. I mean, I went up to 3 because I thought that a lot of people would be playing the Flash decks. Thrashing Brontodon, that's to attack the engines out of the Fires decks or the Golgari or Jund food decks.
Okay, wrapping up here, we covered a lot of the decks in the meta. What about the Simic Ramp deck? That I think we were going to find out is going to be a popular deck here this weekend. Have you tested that, consider that matchup, or are you just looking to get under him?
Yeah, no, I'm looking to get under him, obviously. I don't think I want to go along with a Ramp deck. However, I haven't really played the matchup, but I'd imagine it's not the worst for me. I mean, I'm going to play creatures, play Vivien. They're going to be ramping, and we'll see what happens. I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty straightforward matchup. Yeah,
well, Chris, one thing we saw you do at the Invitational was beat down. You did it well. You've got the deck here in Standard to do that for you as well, so you look pretty well situated. Chris, thanks for joining me here in the Sideboard. We'll be seeing you in action at the Players' Championship this weekend in Roanoke. Stay tuned to Star City Games all weekend long.
Thanks, Nick.